Leof Wine knew the line was sick before the line knew it. You can feel that sort of thing through a shield. Not at first. At first there was only the usual misery. Dawn cold in the knee. Sweat already gathering under mail before the sun had properly climbed. The bite of the helmet rim above the brow. Chalk underfoot. Trampled grass. A steep Sussex hill full of men trying not to breathe too fast and failing in different ways. That, in England, is often how great things begin. Not with trumpets in the heavens, with damp wool, a dry mouth, and some fellow to your left pretending he is not frightened because his father is watching. Leof Wine of Bosham stood in the king's guard with his round shield pressed hard into the next man's ash spear behind, axe hanging ready at his side. He rolled his shoulders once, felt the old pull there, 40 years and near enough, thick through the chest, scar in the lip, one knee that woke angry in the cold and had every right. He had fought in the north not long before. He had slept badly since. Men speak of glory when the blood is still inside them. Afterward, glory smells more of wet leather and opened bowels. Ahead of him, below the ridge, the Normans spread in their coloured pieces and moving lines, pennons, mail, horses shifting where horses had no business being, not against a proper wall of English shields. Foreign noise drifted uphill. Horns, shouts, metal, a language here, another there. William had brought half the sea with him and put iron on it. Above Leof Wine and a little to his right, the king's banner stirred in the wind. The fighting man on it seemed almost cheerful. The raven beside it looked wiser. Harold moved the line before the battle joined, not grandly, not like a storybook king with the sun kneeling to hear him, but like a working man checking his gait in bad weather. A word here, a look there, hold, stand, wait. He knew what sort of day it would be. That was one mercy. Fool kings are easy to find. England had not brought one. Leof Wine saw him pass and set the oath again in his own head, tight as a strap drawn home. Stand by him, hold the wall, do not leave your place. That was the whole shape of it. A clean thing, hard but clean. Then the arrows came. They hissed uphill and rattled the shields and struck the ground and men and leather. One third boy 3 places down made a sound like surprise rather than pain, and sat down where he stood, as if battle were a bench and he had grown tired of waiting. The line tightened, shields knocked edge to edge, spears lifted, someone spat, someone muttered a prayer, someone else, more practical and therefore closer to heaven, said, "Keep your feet." Then the Normans came in earnest. Archers first, then foot, then horse. The hillside did its work. So did the wall. They came up into ash shafts, into shield rims, into axe blows that broke men open like rotten doors. A horse screamed when its forelegs went from under it. A Norman knight tumbled and vanished in the press. Leof Wine thrust once, twice, felt the spear jolt in his hand, dropped it when it stuck, drew his axe, and went to work with the heavy patience of a man splitting oak. That is the thing about trained killers. They do not look mad when they do it well. They look employed. The first assault failed, then the second. The Norman foot came up hard and went back harder. Cavalry crowded the slope, slipped, shoved, died. English shields held. Housecarls swung 2-handed axes into horse flesh and mail and neck and bone. The wall did not cheer, not much. Good men know better than to open their mouths when work is still in front of them. But something passed through the line all the same. Confidence, it is a sweet taste. It has ruined better men than fear.
Leofwine felt it moving before he heard it, a change in the push, a looseness, the sort of little proud lift men get in the shoulders when they begin to think the day belongs to them. A thirdman somewhere along the ridge laughed, actually laughed. Another shouted that the bastards were running. Another called for them to be driven to the sea. Men who had held their ground began, in the secret private chambers of their skulls, to become victors before the battle had bothered to end. That was the problem, because a shield wall does not break all at once. First it loosens, first a fool leans forward, first a brave man mistakes wanting for winning, first somebody sees retreat and takes it for permission. Leofwine turned his head and saw it happen farther down the line to the English right. Not the whole wall, just a piece of it. A bulge, a surge, men spilling downhill after Normans who had begun to give ground. "Stay!" he barked, though they were too far to hear and too full of themselves to listen if they could. The gap appeared before it was called a gap. That is how such things happen. The wound knows itself before the body does.
"Hold!" cried one of the guard captains nearer the king. "Hold fast!" came another voice. Harold's standard did not move, neither did Leofwine. He wanted to. Christ, how he wanted to. Every fighting instinct in him shouted to run there, dress the break, beat the fools back uphill by the neck if need be. But he was housecarl to the king, not nursemaid to every hot-blooded idiot on Senlac Hill. His oath had put a chain through his chest and fixed the other end to Harold. So he stood. That is what hurts, you see. Not that he failed to understand. He understood too early. Below, the retreat turned. Norman horse wheeled, foot rallied. Men who had run down roaring went down quieter all at once, under spear points and hooves and their own surprise. The hillside, which had been England's friend while England kept to it, became a butcher's slope for those who had left it. Leofwine clenched his shield till the boss bit his knuckles through the glove. "Back!" he roared to no one who mattered. "Back uphill, you fools!" A young guard beside him, Edric, broad-faced and pale under the nasal helm, said, "Will they come back?" "Some," said Leofwine. That was honest. It was not kind. The battle rolled on. The Norman attacks kept coming. Arrows, foot, horse, noise, then noise of another kind, more dangerous because it wore an English mouth. Rumour ran along the line like fire in dry thatch. The Duke was dead. No, he lived. The left was broken. No, the left had them. They flee, they rally, press them, stand, go on, hold here, forward. No one heard the whole thing. Each man heard the scrap that suited him best. That is another way a country dies, not only by iron, by mishearing. Leofwine spent as much strength on Englishmen as on the enemy now. A shove of the shoulder to keep one from stepping out. A curse to make another lift his shield. A snapped order to close edge to edge. He fought the urge of the line to become many lines. That old, stupid wish of every army full of part-time soldiers to stop being a creature and become a crowd. Around Harold, the housecarls stayed workmanlike and grim. These were men who knew their trade, thick-armed, silent, axes blackened with old use, shields painted, chipped, practical. They did not talk of glory, because glory is a word mostly used by men who think they will survive to describe themselves. One of them, Osric, with a red boar on his shield and a nose bent twice in other men's quarrels, grunted as he split a Norman spear with his axe haft. "They'll do it again," he said. "Yes," said Leofwine, and they did. Another retreat, Another English rush from somewhere beyond his reach. Not all. Enough. Enough to thin the ridge. Enough to drag good men downhill into pieces. Enough to leave spaces where there should have been oak and iron and breath. Time wore the army down in layers, first the eager, then the unlucky, then the solid ones. That is the cruel mathematics of a long fight. By noon the line still stood, but not as it had at dawn. Fewer seasoned men in the ridges of the shield wall, more boys with burning lungs, more village levies with arms grown leaden, more gaps closed by whoever still had feet and nerve enough to stand in them. Harold still stood. Leofwine saw him in fragments, a profile under the helm, a hand raised, a command carried and swallowed, the banner above, the standard bearer braced like a post driven into winter ground. The king was where a king ought to be, but protecting the king and protecting England had begun to separate. That, too, Leofwine felt before he admitted it. He put his axe into a Norman's face and kicked the man free, and thought, not for the first time, that an oath is a fine thing until the world makes it choose between two duties and lets it keep only one. The afternoon thickened. The hill stank now. Blood, churned earth, opened guts, horse sweat, wet leather. The grass underfoot had become red slime over chalk. Men slipped on what had been men. Arrows stuck from the ground like bad growths in a field gone wrong. The wall shrank. No one announced it. No herald stepped forward to say, here ends the broad defence of England, and here begins the last hard knot around one doomed centre. Battles are more vulgar than that. They simply close in around whoever remains. Leofwine found himself nearer Harold than before, not because he had advanced, because the world had contracted. Closer, shouted the captain. They closed. Shield to shield, shoulder to shoulder, axe heads lifting and falling in cramped, brutal strokes. No sweep now, no flourish, no room for the grand cut that makes a song. Just short, hateful work. Chop, ram, hook, kick, breathe, again. Edric took a spear through the throat and looked almost offended by it. Osric went down under a horse and vanished with one arm still reaching for his axe. Wulfmare, who chewed garlic before battle and never stopped talking in camp, made no sound at all when the arrow found the join under his arm. Men Leofwine knew by shield paint, by habits, by snoring, by the way they sharpened a blade, were being rubbed out one after another until the air itself seemed thinner for the loss of them. A Norman broke through with more courage than sense and came straight for Harold's flank. Leofwine saw him. There are moments when a man may save something very small and very real, though the day itself is already sliding away from him. This was one. He stepped in, took the sword stroke on his shield with a crack that ran up his arm to the shoulder, and buried the axe in the Norman's neck so deep he had to wrench with both hands to free it. Hot blood slicked the haft. Harold turned just once. Their eyes met through iron and sweat and battle filth. No speech, no grand gratitude. Kings in songs have time for speeches. Kings in losing battles have seconds. Harold gave him one hard nod and turned back to the press. Leofwine had saved a heartbeat, only a heartbeat. It changed nothing large. That was the cruelty. Then something went wrong at the centre. An arrow storm rose. Not the flat direct cast from earlier, but higher, arcing down. Shields tilted, men ducked. The air filled with that ugly whispering again. One shaft slapped into a shield near Leofwine's face. Another punched through leather. Another struck a man behind him, and the man folded with a sound like a sack emptied onto boards. Near the banner there came a cry, then another, then a movement in the men closest to the king that was not retreat exactly, not yet, but the beginning of disbelief. Harold vanished from Leofwin's sight. Then he was visible again, low, wrong, supported perhaps, or falling, or already down in the crush. On such a hill, at such an hour, certainty is a luxury for monks and tapestry makers. Men in the press get only glimpses and consequences. "The king!" someone shouted. No order followed. That told its own tale. The banner dipped, rose, dipped again. Leofwine felt the ground alter beneath him without moving at all. A centre had gone out of the world. The oath he had carried all day changed shape inside him so suddenly it was almost pain. Beside him, Edwig, old enough to know better and bloody enough not to care, said, "Is he down?" Leofwine did not answer. Because if Harold lived, the answer was a wound, and if Harold was dead, the answer was England. The Normans knew something, or smelled it, or perhaps they simply kept killing until the truth made itself plain. Their assault hardened, more pressure, more shouting in French and Breton and Norman, more horseflesh forcing into the broken edges. The ring around the king's place tightened, but now it was not a wall guarding a living centre. It was a ring around an absence men had not yet agreed to name. This is where most songs lie to you. They tell you a man stands because he believes he can still win, or because he has gone mad, or because he loves death. That is the nonsense of safe rooms. Leofwine stayed because going now would rot everything that had made him worth the king's bread. He had held in the north. He had held at sea. He had held in hall and field and rain and oath. If he ran now, then all that steadiness had only been luck with a helmet on. So he planted his boots deeper in the spoiled earth. His shield was split. His left arm had gone numb from the elbow down. The axe haft was slick. Breath boomed loud in the helm. His bad knee burned. Foreign noise filled the hill. Around him, England was being cut smaller and smaller and smaller. He struck one man in the jaw and another in the collar and rammed a third backward with the shield boss. He trod on a hand. He lost the shield rim. He kept the axe. He did not know whether he stood over Harold's body or merely near the place where Harold had fallen. It no longer mattered in the old way. The king he had sworn to guard was no longer a task before him. He was a fact behind him. That was what loyalty had become, not usefulness, not victory, witness. Around him the last housecarls fought with the dreadful economy of men who know the account will not close in their favour and keep paying anyway. No wasted breath, no heroes roaring, just labour, bitter final labour. One more stroke, one more step, one more refusal. Leofwine killed a rider who reached too far. He dragged a wounded guard up by the shoulder strap only for the man to sag dead before his feet were properly under him. He saw the raven banner go. Whether torn down, dropped, or buried in men, he could not have said. He only knew he saw it no longer. The hill belonged to foreign throats now. Still he stood, because there are defeats so complete that the only thing left for a man is to show what sort of thing they have defeated. And there on Senlac Hill, with the chalk turned red beneath him and the day gone to pieces all around, Leofwine of Bosham showed them a housecarl, a king's man, an English wall in the shape of one tired body. They came for him. He did not break.